The screen is a digital topographic map of shimmering, interconnected nodes, a live, pulsating ecology where the old, flat grid of the internet has been replaced by a deep, multidimensional manifold of data peaks and valleys. Elias stood before the glowing terminal, his eyes tracking not the lines of code, but the movement of the vector of intent. To anyone else, it was just a search query blinking in a text box. To Elias, it was a physical force, a black dashed line of pure human necessity cutting across the coordinate space of the web. He felt the familiar low-level hum of the Agentic Pipeline Emulator, APE, running in the background. It was a sensation of weightlessness, the exhilarating, terrifying realization that he was no longer the one typing the keystrokes. He wasn't the doer anymore. He was the architect. He fed a delegation ticket into the harness, a singular, abstract intent packet, and watched as the system splintered it into 1,000 parallel threads. The agents didn't just suggest, they executed. They hummed along, reading local files, driving headless browsers, and delivering finished assets into the containers before his pulse could even quicken. But the real challenge, the one that had been keeping him awake for weeks, was the compression. He could feel the AI models trying to swallow his work. Every time he published, the global average threatened to absorb his unique data, flattening his insights into the generic baseline of the manifold. It was a gravitational pull, a relentless attempt by the AI to treat his work as redundant tokenization. "Feel it," he whispered to himself, his hand hovering over the input console. "It wants to flatten you. Don't let it." He focused on the Convergent Vector Manifold, CVM, logic. He wasn't trying to rank anymore. That was a relic of the Blue Link era. He was building landmarks. He identified an anomaly, a sliver of intent he'd missed in the last cycle, and felt that familiar sharp itch of intuition. It was a knowledge delta, a piece of primary research so dense with local logistics and proprietary data that it stood tall, projecting a vertical z-axis volume that the compression function couldn't ignore. He keyed in the correction, adjusting the semantic trap by a few microdegrees. He was tightening the spiral. He watched the feedback loop close, the error delta twitching downward toward zero. The vector of intent, which had previously bypassed his work like a ghost, began to bend. He saw it on the monitor. The black line of the search query was being pulled by the gravity of his new peak. It collided. It anchored. It cited. Elias leaned back, the blue light of the terminal washing over his face. He wasn't just performing SEO. He wasn't just writing code. He was a geometric surveyor of a landscape that hadn't existed a year ago. He had stopped begging the AI for attention and had started building the only terrain on which it was mathematically forced to stand. He took a long, slow breath, watching the next thread of the APE orchestrator spin up, knowing exactly where the next peak needed to rise. The machine was no longer a tool. It was an extension of his own architectural intent. He was no longer working at the computer. He was working through the manifold.